he was like, oh, and he'd try and top it. And and my assistant was there, and he left because he couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
The air had turned cold.
Mel Gibson. Just saying the name brings up images of epic movie battles, intense acting, and a Hollywood career that's been one heck of a roller coaster. He was Mad Max. He was William Wallace. For a while, he was the biggest movie star on the planet. But behind the billion-dollar box office and the Oscars, there's another story, one of conflict, controversy, and some seriously burned bridges. Gibson has never been the type to keep his opinions to himself or play the Hollywood game. He says what's on his mind, for better or worse, and in doing so, he's clashed with some of the biggest names in the business. Today, we're not just talking about minor disagreements. We're digging into stories of professional betrayals, on-set tension, and personal conflicts that created massive divides between Gibson and his peers. These are the clashes that have defined his story just as much as his films have. From superstars, who reportedly refused to work with him, to collaborators who accused him of the unthinkable, we're counting down 5 Hollywood stars Mel Gibson has had major friction with. And the story at number 3 isn't just a disagreement. It's an all-out war of words that shines a light on the dark side of Hollywood ambition. Stick around as we uncover the conflicts Mel Gibson can't forget. Coming in at number 5 is a name that's basically Hollywood royalty, Julia Roberts. America's sweetheart, the star of Pretty Woman, Erin Brockovich, and so many other blockbusters. Her on-screen charm is legendary. So how did she end up in a tense situation with Mel Gibson? The story goes back to 1997, on the set of the thriller Conspiracy Theory. The film itself was a high-concept project. Gibson played a paranoid taxi driver who sees conspiracies everywhere, and Roberts played a Justice Department attorney he's obsessed with. On paper, pairing 2 of the biggest stars in the world seemed like a guaranteed hit. But behind the scenes, things were a bit complicated. From the start, there were reports that Julia Roberts was hesitant to work with Mel Gibson. At the time, Gibson's reputation for on-set pranks and an intense personality preceded him. Roberts, known for being incredibly professional, was reportedly wary. It took a major effort from Gibson and director Richard Donner to get her on board. They basically launched a campaign to persuade her. In one interview, Roberts joked, "They stalked me. They called my machine incessantly." Gibson even admitted they cornered her in a hotel room and wouldn't let her leave until she agreed. The moment she said yes, a pre-planned brass band reportedly jumped out of a closet to celebrate. While it's told as a funny story, it shows her initial reluctance. Once filming started, their different working styles became apparent. Gibson was a notorious prankster, always trying to keep the mood light with crazy gags. During one scene, he reportedly put a freeze-dried rat in a box and gave it to her as a gift. Roberts was not amused. For some actors, that kind of thing is endearing. For others, it's just disruptive. There were no public fights, but the set was described as professional yet cool. The famous film critic Roger Ebert even noted that the on-screen romance felt a little forced, a sign that something wasn't quite clicking between the leads. After the film, they were diplomatic in public, but never worked together again. This conflict wasn't some dramatic blowout, but a fundamental clash of personalities. It was a case of Hollywood's ultimate unpredictable outsider meeting one of its most polished insiders, and it serves as an early sign of the friction that would follow Gibson's career. At number 4, we have a major collaboration that almost happened but fell apart, leaving a mark behind the scenes: Leonardo DiCaprio. Today, DiCaprio is one of the most respected actors alive. But in the late 2000s, he nearly teamed up with Mel Gibson for what could have been an epic film. The project was a passion for Gibson, a brutal Viking epic he called Berserker. He wanted to make a raw, visceral film spoken entirely in Old Norse, similar to what he did with The Passion of the Christ and Apocalypto. This was Gibson, the director, at his most ambitious, and he wanted Leonardo DiCaprio for his leading man. At first, DiCaprio seemed excited. He called himself a history buff and praised Gibson's directing in films like Apocalypto, saying Gibson could transport me back in time unlike very many filmmakers. The pairing sounded perfect, Gibson's immersive style with DiCaprio's intense acting. However, the project started to unravel before it even began. One issue was reportedly the script's relentless violence. While DiCaprio isn't afraid of dark material, sources suggested the extreme brutality in Gibson's vision gave him and his team pause. But the real deal-breaker was Gibson's public image imploding. The film was in development right around the time of Gibson's 2006 DUI arrest and anti-Semitic tirade, followed by the 2010 leak of racist and misogynistic tapes. Almost overnight, Mel Gibson became toxic in Hollywood. For DiCaprio and his team, working with Gibson was no longer an option. In Hollywood, perception is everything. A source close to DiCaprio put it bluntly, saying there was not a chance he would do the project amid the scandals. The reason was simple. Leo has earned the right to pick and choose who he works with, and Mel Gibson is not one of them. It wasn't about creative differences anymore. It was a career move to avoid the controversy. The dream project fell apart. For Gibson, this was a major rejection from the A-list Hollywood he once ruled. While DiCaprio never publicly slammed Gibson, his actions spoke volumes. He chose to protect his brand rather than stand by a controversial artist. This conflict wasn't fought with public insults, but with quiet, calculated decisions made in Hollywood boardrooms. Now we get to number 3, and this one isn't just a disagreement. It's a Hollywood horror story of betrayal, explosive accusations, and secret recordings. The man at the center of it all is Joe Eszterhas, the legendary screenwriter behind blockbusters like Basic Instinct and Showgirls. In 2011, Eszterhas was hired to write the script for Gibson's next passion project, a historical epic about the Jewish warrior Judah Maccabee. The project was already controversial. Given Gibson's past anti-Semitic comments, many were outraged he would tell this iconic Jewish story. But Gibson pushed forward, hiring Eszterhas to write the script. The collaboration was a total disaster. After months of work, Warner Brothers rejected Eszterhas's script, calling it substandard. Gibson told Eszterhas it was a significant waste of time. This is where it all exploded. In April 2012, Eszterhas wrote a scathing 9-page letter to Gibson and leaked it to the press. The letter was a bombshell. Eszterhas accused Gibson of never actually wanting to make the film, claiming the project was just a sham to burnish his tarnished reputation and counter the accusations of anti-Semitism. The letter's most damaging allegation was that Gibson was sabotaging the film because, in Eszterhas's words, "You hate Jews." Eszterhas alleged that Gibson constantly used offensive slurs for Jewish people, and that his main goal was to convert the Jews to Christianity. The letter also painted a picture of a man consumed by rage, claiming Gibson ranted about wanting to have his ex-girlfriend killed. Gibson fired back with his own public letter, calling the allegations utter fabrications. He insisted the real problem was Eszterhas's terrible script. "I absolutely want to make this movie," Gibson wrote. "It's just that neither Warner Brothers nor I want to make this movie based on your script." The feud then took a wild turn. Eszterhas revealed his son had secretly recorded one of Gibson's rants on an iPod. He then released a clip to the public. On the tape, Gibson can be heard screaming and cursing in a rage about the script. "Why don't I have a first draft of the Maccabees? What the have you been doing?" Gibson bellows. While the tape didn't contain the anti-Semitic remarks Eszterhas alleged, it did seem to confirm his description of Gibson's explosive temper. The fallout was catastrophic. The Maccabees project was officially dead. The feud became one of the ugliest public breakups in Hollywood history, revealing the raw, brutal side of what happens when two huge, confrontational egos go to war. For Gibson, it was another devastating blow that reinforced the public image of a man plagued by uncontrollable rage. Before we get to our top 2, we have to ask, what do you think so far? The on-set friction with Julia Roberts, the project that wasn't with Leonardo DiCaprio, or the all-out war with Joe Esterhaz? Let us know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this look behind the Hollywood curtain, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Now, on to number 2. Coming in at number 2 is a conflict that stems from a single alleged encounter that has haunted both actors for decades. We're talking about the deeply personal and unresolved clash with Winona Ryder. Ryder was a definitive actress of the 90s, from Beetlejuice to Edward Scissorhands. Her conflict with Gibson goes back to an incident she says happened at a Hollywood party around 1996. For years, it was just a rumor, but in a 2010 interview with GQ, Ryder spoke about it publicly for the first time. According to Ryder, she was at a party with her friend, the late makeup artist Kevin Aucoin, who was gay. She claims Mel Gibson joined their conversation. What she alleges happened next was horrifying. She claims that after Gibson learned her friend was gay, he turned to him and said, "Oh, wait, am I going to get AIDS?" The conversation then, allegedly, turned to Ryder, who is Jewish. She claims Gibson said to her, "You're not an oven dodger, are you?" A vile anti-Semitic slur referencing the Holocaust. Ryder said she was so shocked that the hateful nature of the comment left a painful and vivid memory. She retold the story in a 2020 interview, and her account has stayed consistent for over a decade. Gibson's response has been just as consistent, a furious and total denial. His representatives have called Ryder's story 100% untrue. His camp accused her of lying, with a rep stating she lied about it over a decade ago, and she's lying about it now. The situation became a classic he said, she said scenario, with no other public witnesses to back up the story. Many believe Ryder, pointing to Gibson's documented history of anti-Semitic and homophobic statements as proof of a pattern. Others argue that without proof, it remains an unproven accusation. Gibson's team even denied Ryder's claim that he later tried to apologize, stating that he reached out to confront her about her lies. Ryder responded to this by standing her ground, stating, "I believe in redemption and forgiveness and hope. That Mr. Gibson has found a healthy way to deal with his demons, but I am not one of them. It is a painful and vivid memory for me." This isn't a professional disagreement. It's a deep and personal accusation of bigotry that has never been resolved. And now, for the number 1 spot. This final clash is different. It's not about one incident or a failed movie. It's a philosophical war between two of Hollywood's most opposing figures. George Clooney. On one side, you have Mel Gibson, the renegade traditionalist, the outsider who sees the industry as hypocritical. On the other, George Clooney, the sophisticated, liberal icon, the ultimate insider who uses his fame for political activism. For years, these two have represented opposing sides of Hollywood, and their dislike for each other's worldview has occasionally become public. The tension goes back to the mid-2000s. After Gibson's 2006 DUI and anti-Semitic rant, Clooney was one of the few stars to comment publicly. He didn't attack Gibson, but expressed disappointment, suggesting Gibson needed help, but not excusing his behavior. This apparently didn't sit well with Gibson. In his view, Clooney was acting like a moral judge. Gibson's frustration simmered for years until it boiled over in a 2013 interview. When asked about Clooney, Gibson reportedly questioned his expertise on global issues and told him to mind his own business. But the conflict is deeper than that. It's about what a celebrity's role should be. More recently, sources have claimed Gibson has criticized Clooney for his deep involvement in politics, seeing it as phony. One alleged quote has Gibson saying, "Once you start going full George Clooney and acting like you are a literal politician, that's when you know you're a phony." It should be noted, however, that quotes like this are not from direct, confirmed interviews. For Gibson, Clooney seems to embody everything he dislikes about the modern movie star, an actor who uses his platform for political messaging. He reportedly pointed to a political ad Clooney did as an example of what he sees as Hollywood's smug hypocrisy. This clash represents the ultimate insider versus the ultimate outsider. Clooney works seamlessly within the Hollywood system, using its power for his social and political goals. Gibson, after being cast out of that same system, views it with contempt. He sees figures like Clooney as gatekeepers of a corrupt institution. Clooney, in turn, likely sees Gibson as a talented but deeply flawed man whose views don't fit in modern Hollywood. It's a feud built on resentment and two completely opposite philosophies, representing a battle for the very soul of Hollywood itself. So there you have it. From on-set power struggles and shocking accusations to a deep-seated philosophical war, Mel Gibson's story is tangled up in conflict. It paints a picture of a brilliant, passionate, and deeply controversial man who has always been at odds with the industry that made him a star. What do you think? Which of these conflicts had the biggest impact on his career? Was there a star on this list that surprised you? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. We read every single one. And if you found this video interesting, do us a solid and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories Hollywood doesn't always want you to hear. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.